Matt, we were fortunate enough to come down to the training grounds the other day and catch a little bit of training. How has this week been on the training field?
Yeah, pleasing. Hard working start to the week in terms of Monday, Tuesday, obviously on the back of the weekend off, so to speak. So we were able to get a little bit more work into the group at the start of the week, trying to get a few more up to speed in terms of where they need to be. And then there's almost been a split group today in terms of a team preparing for Saturday's game, but also a separate team preparing for the game tomorrow night at Swansea. But they've trained pretty well, been pretty pleased. Obviously, in terms of a new face as well, being added to the group. And a couple more returning either from loan or from illness or from injury. All of a sudden, we got numbers out on the training pitch.
See, your friend Zanzalo was the player you brought in earlier in the week. How's he fitted and gelled in with his new teammates?
Settling in well. Look, he worked hard at the start of the week and probably was surprised with the intensity and the work we did Monday, Tuesday. But we were back out on the grass as opposed to the AstroTurf today. And a lighter session, so to speak. But in terms of match preparation, he's looked good. He's looked mobile. He's looked fit. He's looked willing. We've brought him in a certain job, and hopefully he understands that and appreciates that. And we've got to give him, as a group of players and a group of staff, the best possible opportunity. So we're looking forward to what he can show this weekend, the first time in terms of in front of our fans. Being back at the park is always a big thing, and making your league debut in front of your home fans is a big moment. So hopefully he can perform well on top of a good team performance.
Obviously, Jack Sparks has returned from his loan at Torquay, and you mentioned a couple of other players who have returned from injuries. It must feel like there's probably 3 or 4 new signings out there for you, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, Jack Sparks, he was due to play 6 or 7 games at Torquay. Unfortunately, he got COVID in the last week to 10 days of that period, or that loan period at Torquay. So he missed his final 2 games. So he was getting up to speed in terms of those match minutes, and then to take a little setback. Hopefully, he's not lost too much fitness and hasn't missed out in terms of that game time too much in relation to where his body was. But he comes back into the fold this weekend. We're still trying to get him fully up to speed, but he's trained well this week. And we spoke previously about Sam Stubbs being seen now as a consistent player within the first team ranks. Piers Sweeney played the first half against Portsmouth and has trained this week as well. So all of a sudden players are coming back into the fold, and the rest of the group in terms of the returners from that initial COVID hit, there's no one really left on the sidelines. We've had a couple of positive tests today, but they're only with players who are out on loan at the moment, so that doesn't directly affect the first team. And for the first time, we've got a strong squad going into the weekend, and it's actually strong enough that we can offload a couple of players to the 23 squad who need the 90 minutes.
We'll talk about Saturday first. And Scunthorpe, a side who on paper are struggling, but as we've seen again in games against teams down the bottom this season, Oldham, Carlisle, etc., they're not a side that just roll over.
No, they're a good team. The manager's gone in there and improved them. I think in terms of that 9-game run he's had, they've drawn a lot of games and been close to winning them. I watched them at Tranmere last weekend, and they were really unfortunate in that game. 2 goals from outside the box. It was a very even game, but all of a sudden you're on the back end of a 4-0 scoreline. The game certainly didn't reflect that in any way. And we know how much experience their manager's got. They've got some good players within their squad. So they're on the crest of a turn, really, in terms of where they'll end up league position-wise. And they'll be looking to add players within this window as well. So they're not too far away from putting a run of results together. We're fully aware of their capabilities. But we're also seeing what we can produce on Saturday on the back of not a positive week last week. I can't even say it was a positive week because we didn't get the results. But certainly in terms of the performance we produced.
I was going to mention the performances. We've spoken before in some of your post matches that actually perhaps they have been pleasing performances, and it's just been the final result that's probably frustrated you the most.
Yeah, look, let's be honest. The game on New Year's Day, I didn't understand or I didn't expect anything out of it, simply because we'd had no preparation time. It was a team thrown together at the last minute, a team on that pitch who hadn't trained together or trained enough to be competitive, but we managed to be competitive at some, despite losing in the last minute, and then maybe produce one of our performances of the season, like you described at Forest Green on the Tuesday night. So, that was a real positive return in terms of play. And then we had the near opportunity. I don't quite know how to describe it any other way than we felt we were on top and deserved to win the game against Portsmouth, only to have it taken away from us in the last 5 minutes. But we played a part in that, and we had to see out those important moments. And when you're playing so well, make sure you win the game of football. So really pleased in terms of those performances. But as always, it's about points. And in terms of Nova Cup competitions as such to target, it's all about how many points we pick up from now until the end of the season. Literally at the halfway point, in the season. So 23 games is an awful lot of football left to be played, but quickly that can get ticked off, and quickly it reduces in terms of how many games we've got left.
And we'll move on then to this game at Swansea tomorrow in the Under-23s Cup. You mentioned obviously a few players from the first team you'd expect to play in that game, and obviously a game that, in terms of the group standings, that would be good to pick up 3 points in.
Yeah, as always, we try and get the balance in these fixtures. First team players who need the minutes. Look, the first team players who are playing tomorrow night, through no fault of their own, just haven't played football for a month. And for that to happen in the middle of the season is unheard of. So they've got to quickly try and get themselves back up to speed. And a game like tomorrow night is a good opportunity to do that. And then we'll get the balance of the rest of the youngsters as well. Unfortunately, 2 out of the starting group have tested positive today. So we've lost another couple of players. So we've not got loads of young players fit and available as it stands. But whoever goes out there, I'm sure will represent the club in the right manner, and try and pick up. I think it will probably our first win in this competition this season. It's been a difficult campaign so far, but certainly we're capable of putting a couple of wins together.
We saw Alex Hartridge and Sam Nombe at training doing small bits and bobs. Where are those two up to injury-wise?
Yeah, you'll have seen them doing separate bits and pieces, both still with the physios and the SNC coaches at the moment. Not integrated back into the group in terms of normal training. But I've always said, when you see players outside, you feel they're getting closer and closer to a return. Alex is probably a lot further on where Sam is in terms of his knee, and he's just got to tick the last few moments, I suppose, in terms of feeling confident with that knee and being able to twist and turn and being able to jump and land, which is obviously where he picked up the injury. We learned a lot from Pierce's return, so we're obviously going to be guided by that to a certain extent in terms of what we can do with Alex. So Alex will be probably available in the next 10 days or 2 weeks. And then Sam Nombe is probably a little bit further behind that, but isn't too far away. So within the next 2 to 4 weeks, hopefully Sam can start joining back in with the group. He's got to hit certain targets in terms of the speed he runs and the distance he covers and the amount of high-speed running he does, because we have to replicate what he does on a match day. And then, the games can't be the first time that he's exposed to those, those aspects of his game. So we've got to push him and push him and push him while still keeping him safe and secure, if that makes sense. And then hopefully he'll come back and affect it, as will hopefully Alex, as will hopefully some of the more players who are returning from injury.
Finally then, yesterday, I know you did the My New Football Club podcast. Sorry to bring this up again, but have you managed to set the record straight on the bunions issue?
There's no record to set straight. My feet are a mess. But my feet are a mess based on the career I had and the injuries I got. My first injury was obviously at Exeter, and then the last time at Bradford and Cheltenham, respectively. So my feet are a mess. I can't hide away from that fact. It was nice of MJ and Pierce to point it out. And hopefully, when I had discussions with the 2 chaps yesterday, I didn't get my own back, but I put my point across in certain ways. But it was a bit of fun, something different in terms of the usual run-of-the-mill interviews where you've got to be a bit more PC in terms of what you say. But it was enjoyable, and hopefully more good publicity for the football club. The more people we can get in the ground, the better for the football club, and then the more exposure the club gets, the better it is, because we always say it all the time. It's a fantastic place to watch football. Fantastic club to be involved with. There's a real connection between the playing side of it and the fans as well. So yesterday was a different experience, but an enjoyable.